My name is Patrick Finnegan, and I did my project on water quality in the Democratic Republic of Congo, or as you will soon see, the lack thereof. So, some background information. It is one of the poorest countries in the world. The UN ranks it 175 out of 177 countries. And little not so fun fact, about 72% of the population lives in extreme poverty and they make less than $2 a day, or US dollars. It has a population of about 84 million, 33% of which live in urban areas. The other two-thirds live in more rural areas, towns and villages as such. Um, the Democratic Republic of Congo has the majority, actually, of Africa's surface water reserves, 52% of it, and a lot of that is fed by fairly abundant rainfall, about 1,600 millimeters per year, although that is fairly seasonal. So, the region has been in a state of military conflict since about 1998. This conflict has involved several African nations directly, although indirectly it has involved several other countries in Africa, in addition to foreign powers like the United States, several European Union countries. Lots of different states sort of have um, some stake, I suppose, in this conflict. A lot of it has to do with natural resources in the area, that being, or some of which being diamonds, gold, cobalt, copper, um, water, more specifically for the African countries. But it has been a conflict that's been going on off and on for a very long time. It's been one of the most deadly conflicts in human history, if you account for everything since 1998, and has also caused a lot of displacement for certain peoples. So it has created a refugee crisis in itself. And in the DRC specifically, since a lot of the fighting has gone on in the provinces, or certain provinces more towards the east in the Democratic Republic of Congo, it has caused significant issues for the government to provide specific social services to the people in this area. And this will be relevant later on, but majority of the deaths that have occurred during this conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo, at least, are more attributable to nonviolent causes than anything else. So, infrastructure issues in the DRC. Due to conflict in the area for the past 20 years or so, the Democratic Republic of Congo lacks funding in most areas for providing social services, but in particular, their water supply services are pretty lacking at the moment. For example, only about 43% of the population has access to water. That's 69% of urban areas and 23% in rural areas. And only 20% of the population has access to sanitation, so that would be, showering, clean baths, or something of the like, whether in their homes or even a public bath setting. And to add to that, a lot of the water pump systems, particularly in the eastern regions where there's been a lot of conflict, a lot of those systems have not been serviced in over 20 years. So at this point, even areas that do have access to water do not have access to clean or safe drinking water. So about 33 million people in the country do not have access. Waterborne illnesses and illnesses that could be easily treatable if residents had access to a clean water supply. Those are all pretty common. Diseases such as cholera, dysentery, even Ebola can be linked to these water supply issues in many ways. Also, the lack of proper sanitation and basic hygiene practices contributes to this to a large degree. And this is pretty relevant for the whole population, but more specifically, it has a pretty strong impact on the children in the Democratic Republic of Congo. About 43% of children are malnourished, according to the World Bank. And even though children only make up about 19% of the population in the DRC, they make up 47% of DRC casualties in the military conflicts that have happened since 1998. In addition to that, about 1 in 10 children die before the age of 5, and to be completely honest, I'm not 100% sure on why that is such a so commonly used marker, but anyways. Cholera is an acute diarrheal disease that is, for the most part, fairly easily treated, simply with hydrating. If needed, sometimes people will need IV fluids and antibiotics, but overall it's a fairly easy to treat disease, but actually is fatal if left untreated. And due to issues in water supply and water pumping systems, it is actually a huge issue in the Democratic Republic of Congo. It is endemic to the area. They have one of the highest rates of infection in comparison to their population in the world. And on top of that, they have one of the highest death rates in the world. Unfortunately, research on this, especially in recent years, since a lot of the countries in the region are in military conflict, it's hard to conduct really good, solid research on infection rates and death rates, but it is a very common issue all across the DRC. So, efforts to improve the access. The World Bank funded the Urban Drinking Water Supply Project, which provided water to 65,000 households in 3 of the largest cities of the DRC. Also constructed new pipes throughout the Kinshasa area, which is the capital city, providing an additional 2.3 million people with water. In addition to that, there are lots of humanitarian efforts against the cholera endemic. World Health Organization has provided funding to the Ministry of Health in the DRC for vaccination, and UNICEF has taken a fairly wide-ranged approach. Their main focuses are on education, so they put posters all around schools and villages, stuff like that, I guess common meeting places, do demonstrations to help teach basic hygiene, sanitary practices, stuff like that. They also have programs in place to help interrupt transmission and decontaminate at the source whenever an infection is found. Additionally, they have their own vaccination program as well that's more focused in rural areas with high rates of infection. So there have been plenty of barriers to success in providing clean water to people of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Most of this is attributable to the ongoing military conflict. It's simply too difficult. There are some regions, while technically in the DRC, are not in control by the DRC's government. It might be in control of militia, and this is also a constantly changing conflict with so many different powers being involved. Then on top of this, with the refugee crisis, a lot of the time areas that might be clean from cholera or Ebola the infection might be reintroduced through displaced people. And similarly, a lot of these displaced people end up moving to the urban cities, like Kinshasa. And then this contributes to overpopulation in the area, and then eventually down the line, there have been cases of cholera in larger urban areas. Lastly, a simple lack of education. Generally speaking, there's very little sanitation practice, very little hygiene practice going on in the area. So yeah, that's about it. There are my references. Thank you very much.